Hello and welcome to another edition of SC21 TV, the video interview component of SC21, the International Conference for High Performance Computing, Networking, Storage, and Analysis. I'm your host for this episode, Rich Finlinson. I'm based in Salt Lake City, and I'm talking with Kristen Merritt, who is in Oxford in the UK, where it's morning for me, afternoon for you. Kristen, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Would you introduce yourself? Who do you work for and what's your role with SC21?
Okay, not a problem. So my name is Cristin Merritt. I'm a program manager for Alces Flight with a specialization in cloud adoption for HPC. I am a first-time volunteer for the Supercomputing Conference, and I am working on the Inclusivity and Communications Committees.
Why is inclusivity such an important thing here in 2021?
Oh, goodness. I mean, we've seen a lot happen with the Black Lives Matters movement and as well as many of the LGBTQIA movements, especially in 2020. Inclusivity is exceedingly important in tech. There has been countless studies on how having a diverse and inclusive workforce leads to better, more robust technology, especially in the forthcoming emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning. And so being part of the inclusivity community gives me an opportunity to bring forward any types of initiatives towards bringing better equity into supercomputing and HPC.
So if I'm a member of the LGBTQ community, or if I am a woman or a woman of color, will I be welcome at an SC21 conference this year in St. Louis?
Absolutely. We're really excited. Right now, the team is working on several events around inclusivity at SC, as well as many of the smaller HPC groups that have come together, including one I volunteer for, Women in HPC, who have events and workshops throughout the entire conference. You are absolutely welcome to come. In fact, you are encouraged to attend if you can.
So I think that's wonderful that you're involved in that role. And I know another area of content that we'll be exploring with you is the idea of high performance computing and the humanities. Can you give us an introduction to that and why that is also coming out of the UK?
Oh, I'm very excited that the communications team has allowed me to explore the humanities with HPC. My background, my actual degree is in classics, and so I absolutely love when I can have my world and the world that I work in come together as one. I'm exploring the humanities thanks to my wonderful network. I actually started talking with Durham a couple of years ago when I attended their kickoff, and that's when I began to learn about how humanities itself is starting to make its way into HPC. It has a very huge level of promise with the HPC AI movements because of the processing large amounts of data. And I also was very lucky to meet a student who was working on basically bringing Robert Burns, who's Scotland's most famous poem, back from the dead through a neural network experiment that he was doing for his computer science degree.
So wow, what's the status of that? I'm very personally interested in this one because my paternal grandfather was who was a cattle rancher in central Utah, was such a fan of Robert Burns that he named his firstborn son, his firstborn child, is named Burns Finlinson. So my uncle Burns, I always thought that was such a, why would you have a name like Burns? And then it was like, oh, well, it was after Bobby Burns, and my grandfather would be out on his cattle ranch riding his horse, and he would recall Burns poetry because he loved Robert Burns. So
that is so random, but also wonderful. He finished a book, a pamphlet. It's actually called Robot Burns. And I'll send you the link after this. And it's really, his site is amazing. And he explains how he did it. He's at Glasgow, and he started kind of experimenting at Glasgow, managed to get a hold of some free tier cloud usage via Google, and brought this whole thing to life. So it was a really interesting project. And when like the guys let me do this humanities thing, I'm like, I have to get a hold of Perry, because it was just like wonderful that he could figure out ways of bringing him back from the dead. And because my best friend and his wife live up in Edinburgh with a giant statue of Robert Burns and Burns Night, I was all in. I was ready to do it.
So how does it exist now? And do you actually then have an opportunity to interact with a digital Burns?
No, not yet. But there's the book exists now. The site exists now that explains how he did it. It is a side project, so he kind of plays with it now and again and pokes. But I will feed back to him hey, could we potentially have Robert or Robot Burns talking to us in the future?
Oh, wow. That is so cool. Any other examples of how the humanities, this integration between humanities and high performance computing?
Oh gosh, I think what's been really great is finding out how practical it's all been. I think with every person I've spoken to, they've always been able to tie something they've learned into the traditional HPC sciences. To give you an example, the NEST project, which was based on coming up with new ways to engineer musical instruments and to understand the acoustics of rooms, found out that a lot of the acoustic stuff, basically it all wraps around the idea of like both instrument creation, acoustics, and how traditional modeling for CFD comes about. So everything is related to everything else. And their little bit, while it might just be about how a drum is made, is actually starting to feed back into the mathematical modeling for CFD simulations. I mean, it's just those little tiny ways that we're finding that we're not too far apart, even though people would say, oh, this is just art or music. But no, it's about everything.
Also, I'm curious about something that you said in an earlier conversation that we had, and that is that people who are involved in this integration of the humanities and high performance computing are excited that people are interested in it.
They are.
That there's kind of, I guess, a bias that, oh, well, this is a technical area, and so it's only concerned about
Technical things.
scientific kinds of endeavors.
I jokingly say it's kind of related to an imposter syndrome. A lot of the work that people have been doing up until now has been very theoretical, and now they have the data, and now they have the technology, and they're ready. They're wanting to take that next step, and there is a genuine fear that I'm hoping that doing these interviews and getting these posts and things out to the world will show that what they're doing is really valuable, and to be contacted and to be able to talk about it on such a large stage. I'm excited for them. I'm really excited for them, and I'm excited for their work because I think more people need to know about it, and they need to know what's out there and what's possible. I'll also say I see this too a lot in emerging technologies. I've worked with a lot of people in personalized medicine, for instance, and they sometimes have that same exact feeling of, well, I've got all this data and I've got all this stuff, but am I really good enough for HPC? And the answer is yes. Yes, you are.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time this morning for me, this afternoon for you.
Yes.
And to our viewers, join us again soon for another edition of SC21 TV. Thanks for watching.